Hey there, this is Abel James, and welcome to the Fat Burning Man Show. Today I'm super stoked to be here with Mr. Brad Pilon, who's an intermittent fasting expert and best-selling author of Eat, Stop, Eat. I want to get started today by thanking all you folks out there for all of your support. The reviews and feedback I've gotten for the Fat Burning Man Show has just been killer so far, and we've been kicking butt on the iTunes charts and even hit number 1 in Australia and all over the top 10 in the UK and US and English-speaking countries and some non-English-speaking countries. So thanks so much for all of your reviews, and if you do have a minute and haven't already, please take the time to leave another one. And I have a couple more announcements for you folks out there. I'm super close to coming out with a free membership site with a bunch of free resources for all you listeners. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to give you a bunch more information coming up in the next few weeks. And since the Fat Burning Man Show is becoming more and more popular, I'm being contacted by all sorts of cool people who want to be on the show. So stay tuned for that. But today, you folks have been begging me to get Brad on the show for a while now, and I don't blame you. He's a totally cool dude. We talked for 2 hours. Now, don't worry, the show is only about an hour, but we could have easily talked for 6. In the show, we talk about why you don't need to live a miserable fitness model lifestyle to have a fitness model physique, why it may be acceptable to break your fast if you just crash your brand new car into the curb, and why you don't need to spend $400 on a supplement pack to cleanse your body. All right, let's go hang out with Brad. All right, today we're here with the best-selling author of Eat, Stop, Eat, Intermittent Fasting Extraordinaire, and modern-day Adonis, Mr. Brad Pilon. How's it going, Brad?
It's going good. I like that modern-day Adonis thing. That was nice. Good way to start my day.
You're it, dude. So you have a super cool backstory. You worked with the folks at the top supplement companies, Wiley Marketers, and even had dinner with Arnold Schwarzenegger, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about your background and how all this muscly goodness got started.
Oh, yeah. So I started, I guess, in the sort of the muscle game from a really young age, right? Like I was sort of that like constantly skinny 12, 13-year-old. It's almost the same sort of backstory that most guys who get into bodybuilding have, right?
Mm-hmm.
Really small, not overly good at sports, right? But liked the concept of a big, powerful body, because being a comic book buff, that's kind of the direction you go.
Yeah.
Right. And then was just lucky enough that, well, I, couldn't catch a football to save my life. I was really good at picking up heavy things and putting them back down. So I got into lifting weights, and then of course what happens is just like I said, you tend to find something you're good at and you stick with it. So it was an area I was good at. Lifting weights led to reading Muscle and Fitness magazine. Reading Muscle and Fitness magazine was my introduction to sports supplements, and by I guess age 15, 16, I was working in my local supplement shop. I had a bit of a science geek already blossoming inside of me. So at 16, 17, I got a student subscription to the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. And so, every month, not only would I have a muscle and fitness come in the mail, but I had an American Journal of Clinical Nutrition come in the mail, right?
So cool.
And I had no clue I mean, it took me forever to get through these things, because not to date myself, but that was pre-Google, right? So if you got to a word you didn't understand, you could just hop on the computer, type it in Google, and find out what it meant, right? It was go get the dictionary, look the thing up. And if you didn't know what the dictionary is saying, you're kind of, completely out of luck and had to ask around.
You almost forget that it was like that some days ago. It's crazy.
It was way harder. I don't like. I would love to go back and do like any sort of college program now with Google and the internet.
Oh yeah, it's a piece. Well, you can get your PhD on your iPhone these days.
Oh, I'm pretty sure. Kids, they're gonna be brilliant. But anyway, we're completely tangenting already. But yeah, so I went from that, and then the natural progression from working the supplement shop and enjoying the feel of being a quote unquote expert. At the age of 16, 17, being able to upsell anybody on some B vitamins and a protein powder type of thing. I decided the best course of action was to go into nutrition. So I did my undergrad in nutrition at a university, which is what we call college up here in Canada. 4 years honors program. And literally on, I think it was about the week after my final exam, just through kind of luck and happenstance, I ended up getting a job at a local supplement company up here in Canada, which started off as just a nice small little company doing big things.
Yeah.
But I was in R&D, and in the course of 6 years, man, it went from R&D being 5 or 6 guys sitting around a room to, the company was a couple hundred people. R&D alone was 30, doing clinical research all around the world, right? So
wow.
Just it wasn't as much my brilliance as it really was right time, right place.
Yep.
When a company's growing that quickly, responsibility is thrown at you, and it's sink or swim.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the situation I was in. So it was kind of cool. This was pre-kids. This is even pre-marriage. So I was able to travel a lot. And a lot of it was managing our clinical research all around the world. And it was a really good company to cut your teeth in because, one, obviously being one of the top companies in the world, they were fantastic at marketing.
Mm-hmm.
But two, they were actually, putting money towards clinical research and allowing me to kind of oversee it, which was fantastic. So I spent 6 years doing that. A lot of research on creatine, research on leucine, all the things that are kind of still popular now, green tea, even ephedrine back in the day, were things that we were investigating. And I got to talk with the top investigators, top researchers around the world, and really get a feel for who was doing what that side of the table was thinking. I knew what my side of the table, the supplement industry, and how we wanted to market things and how we wanted to position it to the consumer. I understood that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really cool to go from that to then sit with a bunch of academics, sitting around having scotch in Scotland and getting, after a drink or two, their input on how they felt, our approach was going.
Wow.
And it was a bit of a harsh talk. Right?
I'm sure.
Because academics don't always like
marketing,
sales marketing end of things, right? So I guess about 6 years into it, there was one particular conversation where I thought to myself, I'm like, oh, crap, I'm on the wrong side of the table.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those situations where you look at it and you're like, okay, this is fantastic. I'm in a great position in a great company, but it's time to make a change. So I left, went back to school, and did my grad work. And then through some weird sort of happenstance type stuff, I ended up doing my grad work on the metabolic effects of fasting in human beings. So complete and utter change. I mean, I went from supplements, 18 billion meals a day, massive calories to gain muscle, to, hey, what happens when you don't eat? And that was my foray into intermittent fasting. And I'll be honest with you, my original thought was I was going to just show how much it sucked. Right?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, my plan was to design because I remember I came right out of sort of bodybuilding supplement industry. So I wanted to design my amazing diet, the 6 meals a day program, et cetera, right? That I could use to skyrocket myself into the world of academics.
Yeah.
So you need the starting point. So I'm like, all right, well, we'll start with what happens when you don't eat, and we'll go from there. Right?
Yeah.
And it was, a couple other things involved in that decision that are really neither here nor there. But so it was kind of a forced hand. I had to look at something a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured fasting would be a great place to start. And then it was a whole bunch of realizing that I had no idea what I was talking about and had to really sort of go right back to the beginning and take a look at things. So
that's
lots of fun, lots of eating crow, especially when, I went back to grad school at I was almost 30, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you and after 6 years in the supplement industry, I kind of went in thinking I knew everything.
Yeah.
So a little bit of pie in the face there, but
let's talk about that for a second, because I remember when I started really experimenting with my diet and making serious changes, I needed to face the fact that perhaps like everything I thought I knew about health and nutrition wasn't in fact the truth.
Yeah.
And I know that you kind of allude to that in your book and in your blog too. I think you wrote, I think I wrote it down here. Yeah, I discovered that a number of things I believed to be true were in fact false. And I discovered that much of what I thought to be false was actually true. So can you tell us about how like having an open mind actually enabled you to make discoveries and progress?
Yeah, well, so you remember that I was, like I said, from the age of 16, working in a supplement shop, and I won't lie to you, I was good at selling supplements, right?
Yeah.
Like it was kind of a skill I had, and I had that skill because, man, I believed. Mm-hmm. Right? Like I believed everything I read in Muscle and Fitness, because it was in a magazine. It had to be true, right?
Yeah.
I believed everything that I heard from the supplement reps when they came into the stores to talk to me, because the guys were bigger than me. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm 16 years old. I weigh $140, right?
Yeah.
These guys are, they're coming in. They're all jacked up, and
right.
Back then you maybe thought that the biggest wrestlers in WWF might be on steroids. Mm-hmm. Right, but anybody under than that they're just working out and eating.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So just believed everybody, and you're so bought in that it wasn't that you were being misleading or lying. It's just that people were so attracted by your belief.
Right.
And so, and you can make it through an undergrad degree. And my degree was the degree you take to become a dietitian up here in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my sort of original goal. And you can make it through that program without really having to challenge a lot of your beliefs, right? Because cognitive dissonance, you kind of just sort of smirk. You're young, right? So when someone
Sure.
tells you that you don't need a lot of protein to build muscle, you're like, look at me, look at you, right? Like you're some 60-year-old lady, and yeah, sure, you have a PhD and hundreds of publications, but I bench 3 plates.
Yeah.
So you don't have to talk about it, right? So you have this sort of mindset, and it was really tough because then in the supplement industry, man, you really got to buy in, especially when you're the R&D guy, right? So
Yeah.
now it's not just a matter of belief, but you're constantly defending your beliefs and making sure that you're marketing the concept that you're correct, right? Because I mean, you've got a company of hundreds of guys, and a lot of them are bigger than you, some are older than you. You have to make sure that they believe that you know what you're talking about, right? So you really sort of, I guess, start believing your own hype.
Yeah.
So you go from there, and then you go into a situation where you're sitting across the table from sort of world-renowned researchers, right?
Right.
And you're quoting papers to them, and they're looking at you going like, I did this research arm on that paper. Don't tell me what the paper said, or you didn't know this about the subjects, or perhaps you want to know about the part that wasn't published, right? And something that a lot of people may not know is, if you and I did a study right now, we go back to university, we lined it up. That thing, the results may not be published for 3 years.
Yeah.
Right. So
takes a long time.
What I'm telling these people is like cutting edge stuff. They're like rolling their eyes at me going like, dude, that was like 4 years ago. Things have changed, or we did a follow-up study. So, it kind of got that weird feeling where I'm like, do I not know as much as I think I know?
Yeah.
And that was really what sort of drove me to go back to school. And then when you start with something as basic as fasting, and this is, 2005, right? So intermittent fasting is not something that's popular on the internet right now.
Right.
And you start looking it up and finding information that like your metabolism, your basal metabolic rate doesn't slow down if you don't eat every 6 hours. And so literally I would take that paper and I would be like, okay, that's in the trash pile, right? Like those guys didn't know what they're talking about. And I'd pull another one.
Wow.
Same thing. Trash. My belief system was so built up.
Yeah.
That it only got to the point where I looked at it and I'm like, looking at my desk, and there's 4 or 5 papers to support what I'm talking about, thinking. Looking at the trash, and there's about 30 papers on the floor.
Wow.
And again, this is, before you could just download them all and read them. I had to photocopy them and bring them home type of thing.
Yeah.
So, and I thought, okay, I've got a major issue here, right? I either have to just keep the blinders on and push forward, or I'm going to take this, my decision to go back to school seriously and maybe look at what's going on with these studies on the floor. And it was tough because the hardest part of this whole experience for me is having, I had an honors degree. I graduated Dean's List, so I kind of felt smart, 6 years in the industry. And it wasn't a month into doing my graduate work I realized I have no clue how to read a paper.
Really?
I know how to read the abstract. I can read the
man.
introduction. I can read the results, and I can read the discussion.
Yeah.
But I started looking at the actual stats and the design of the studies and realized, I can tell you when a study's horribly done. So I can tell you when it's an F.
Yeah.
And I can tell you when a study's fantastic. I can tell you when it's A. But a difference between your B, C, and D studies, I was like, wow, I really don't have the background for this. Then I realized that's what half of grad work is learning the specific ins and outs of research.
Yeah.
And how specific it is to your area. So as a good example, you can throw a fasting paper at me right now and I can tear that thing apart. I can tell you whether or not to use the right stats, the right testing methods, anything. Throw a paper on cancer at me and I'm just as useless as a high school math teacher. No offense to high school math teachers, right? But it's so specific to your area, and that was the big sort of awakening to me, because I thought, wow, if I don't know research this well, then how about all the people who've been telling me that studies say such and such?
Yeah.
Right? So studies show this and studies show that was kind of the mantra of like the supplement sales reps used to visit me when I was 16 working in a supplement shop, right?
Mhm.
Oh, dude, there's tons of studies and stuff. It's awesome. That's all I needed, right? I'm like, whoa, this supplement's got studies done on it. It's
Studies in quotation marks.
oh, totally.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. So the eye opener